Alright, so you should have by now gotten a good understanding of how demand is set up to look. But what we're doing right now is that we're going to start talking about how to move demand or how demand shifts. What we have to have is changes in non-price determinants. Remember that changes in non-price determinants are what happens when we release ceteris paribus. We're not forcing everything to stay fixed. Alright? One of the classic ones that we talked about last time was the number of buyers. When the number of buyers in a market grows, our demand curve shifts to the right. So imagine, if you will, that the U.S. takes over Canada. Then the market for U.S. corn, the demand will increase because all of those Canadians will be wanting to buy corn. Right? Similarly, it can work the other direction too. Imagine, if you will, that for some reason Texas decides to secede from the Union. They become their own country. That wouldn't suck, would it? But if they do, what happens to the U.S. demand for corn? The demand curve shifts to the left. So when we have a decrease in demand, the demand curve shifts to the left. When we have an increase in demand, it shifts to the right. All right? The basic format doesn't change, the shape of the curve, but where it's positioned moves right or left when these non-price determinants change. All right, so let's look at the next non-price determinant that I have up here, tastes and preferences. And in parentheses, I've got the word ads. That's advertising is what it is. When companies advertise to us, so like when Pepsi tries to tell us that it's a wonderful soda and we should all drink it, what they're trying to do is to tell us we should want more Pepsi. Or, let's shift the demand curve to the right. Increase demand. And again, it can also work in the negative mode as well. Right? Think of all of those iPhone application advertisements or the 3G networks, right? Verizon and whatnot. Those guys trying to tell you that the competitor is bad. What they're trying to do there is to say, hey, we're advertising so that you demand their product less. Their product's demand decreases while maybe yours increases, right? All right, so again, decrease in demand, shift to the left, increase in demand, shift to the right. What about our next one? Income. When you start making more money, generally speaking, you demand goods more. Corn is what we call a normal good. When your income rises, so in a normal good, when your income rises, your demand for that particular good goes up. Demand increases and it shifts to the right. But now think about other types of goods. Think about inferior goods, like say maybe grade C beef, right? That would be an inferior good, or generic goods, right? When your income goes up, are you going to buy more generic goods? In fact, what you're going to do is you're going to start buying less, because what you're going to do is to start buying the name brands. So here's our first shift in the way things work, right? There's actually an inverse relationship between the income and your inferior goods, right? When income goes up and demand goes up for normal, but for inferior, when your income rises, your demand for it will actually decrease. It'll shift to the left, right? That's the difference between normal and inferior goods. All right. Now, the last thing that we want to talk about as a non-price determinant are prices of related goods. So think of another good that's related to corn. Let's say something like beans. All right? Now, you are an economist measuring the corn market. All you care about is the corn market. And normally, ceteris paribus. That means you're keeping beans prices fixed. Now we release that and we say the price of beans rises. And what are beans to corn? Beans and corn are substitutes. Right? If you're not going to eat corn, you're going to eat beans. Well, if the price of beans goes up, so one of the things that you can substitute for corn, its price rises, guess what happens to your demand for corn? You're going to want more of it because it's cheaper than beans, therefore your demand actually increases. So if the price of beans goes up, your demand for corn will increase. Now let's look at the converse of that. What happens if the price of beans falls? Right? We'll switch colors for that. So now we're looking at the price of beans falling. Since beans are cheaper, your probably going to buy more beans than you are corn, and what happens is that your corn demand actually shifts to the left. So here's where you see one of those weird cases where the price of a substitute good, if it rises, your demand for the other good, right, not for beans but for corn, will actually increase. Whereas if the price of your substitute falls, you're going to start buying that substitute, and so the demand for corn will go down. Now, what about complements? So a complement for corn, what would be a complement for corn? Well, what do you put on corn on the cob? Butter. Right? Suppose the price of butter rises. If the price of butter rises, this is a complementary good. They go together. If it costs you more to buy butter, normally you're going to buy corn and butter together. Now when you buy corn and butter together, it's going to be more expensive. Therefore, you're going to buy less corn because the butter that you always put on your corn costs you more. So you're going to have to buy less corn to make up for the fact that this price of butter has increased. So it actually works the opposite direction, right? When the price of butter rises, a complement, right? Remember that this is a complement. Your demand will actually decrease, right? Another one of those inverse relationships. The price of this complement increases, your demand decreases. And then similarly as beans, if the price falls, the price of your complement falls, in other words, it's cheaper to go out and buy corn and butter together, your demand will actually increase for corn. All right, so there's a quick introduction to non-price determinants and how they shift demand.